driving an Ameritron solid-state amplifier, about 900 watts peak output. The antenna is a delta loop, an 80-meter delta loop, strung up between two pine trees. So that's the big antenna farm. Over to you, Jim. Kc9Vkv W4FA.
Roger, John. Well, I wanted to ask you about your solid-state adventure into power amplifiers. What do you think about solid-state power amplifiers?
Well, personally, I would never go back to a tube-type amp. You know, I was brought up in the days of tube-type amps and had quite a few of them, and I got tired of dip-to-plate, watched the loading and watched the grid current and all that sort of stuff. So I got my first solid-state amp, maybe about 10, 14 years ago, and well, yeah, I think I was the first one. And now I got this ALS 1300 from Ameritron, and yeah, they're fine. The only thing is you have to watch one or two things. Main thing, I guess, is the SWR. Solid-state amps definitely do not like any sort of SWR, so you have to have the antenna matched or have the antenna tuner set correctly. The only other thing they don't like is putting in the wrong input frequency compared to the output frequency for which the amplifier is set. The very newer and more expensive amps, you don't have to worry about that because they have a frequency counter built in that can compare the input frequency with the output frequency for which you have the amplifier set, and if things are wrong, the amplifier shuts down. Anyway, sorry about the long speech, but you asked me, Jim, so I told you. Kc9Vkv W4FA.
Roger, John. That's exactly what I've been looking for. We have a Qso-Vlog page on YouTube, and we do recordings of QSOs and post them, and we are rolling tape as we speak. And so I was just curious about your take on solid state. Now you have a band selector, is that correct, on your solid state amp?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Say again.
You have a band selector on your solid state amp?
Yes, it's a manual band selection. You can have solid-state amps which will band switch automatically with the transceiver. This amp will do it also, the ALS 1300 from Ameritron, but you have to buy a little accessory box, which I think costs about $120, $130 with an interconnecting cable. Then it will band switch automatically. It will follow the band switching on your transceiver, which of course is a great good advantage. Go ahead.
Roger, John. Well, we had somebody tuning up on the frequency, which is always a jovial occasion to stupidity. But what can you say? Some folks just don't have much coup de grace in their operation of their station and just tune up on a frequency in use. What can you say? You know, that is, I guess, to be expected in some degree. So you do have a band select on your solid state amp. Now, since you do not have critical frequency loading, what happens with your audio? Do you have to be careful not to overmod on the solid state amp?
Well, it's like any amp when you're working on sideband, you don't want to overdrive it by having the audio set up too high, but that's a function of watching the ALC on your transceiver. And of course you can have a ALC connection between the amplifier and the transceiver. So if you have the transceiver set up correctly, you should not drive the ALC, should not overdrive the amplifier. But that's true of any amp, you know, whether it's solid state or tube. You can overdrive it if you try hard enough. Go ahead.
Roger, Roger, John. Now, tell me, I'm thinking that you do not have the ALC connection between the radio and your power amp. I don't know of anybody that actually runs the ALC from the radio to the power amp, but do you?
Yep, I have the connection. I have the ALC connection between the transceiver and the power amp, as per the instructions that come with the amplifier. Go ahead.
Roger, Roger. And just curious about your ALC reading meter. When you adjust your modulation, do you adjust for mid-band indication on the ALC meter, or to the right or to the left?
I adjust between 3/4 and high up. Between 3/4 and high up. Of course, the correct way to do this is with an oscilloscope to monitor your modulation, but I don't have that facility. You know, in other words, to watch if you're flat topping or not. But I only watch the ALC meter, and I definitely try to keep it below the peak reading on the ALC meter. Go ahead.
Roger, Roger, John. You try to keep it in the box. I understand that. I prefer on the right-hand side as straight up myself, and usually sometimes I'll set up the modulation with a tone, and just adjust it that way. You know, looking at the ALC meter, and you know, bring your audio up to you know, the point of where it's indicating correctly on the ALC, and then you're pretty close. So that works out. I was just curious, more or less, about the amplifier and the solid state. Now, how much more do you think that solid state amp did cost than, say, a regular tube amp?
Well, that's a good question. This amplifier, I'm trying to remember. I think Ameritron advertises it for around $2,600. You can get a discount on it, so I think I paid around $2,200, and that would be maybe about almost twice as much as you would pay, let us say, for an amp with a bunch of 4.811s or 4 572Bs, which would push out at least as much power. Well, the 572Bs definitely would push out at least as much power. So yeah, you're paying a price for the solid state amp and the convenience. Now, the other side of the story too, if you need the amp to be repaired, very few people that I know of can repair a solid state amp themselves. I certainly can. But in the old days when I had a tube type amp, if I blew up the tubes, of course I could replace the tubes myself. So that's the other side of the story. I think there used to be a program on radio which said, now here's the real side of the story type of thing. Kc9Vkv W4FA.
Roger, Roger, John. Well, you know, solid state is in its infancy in ham radio. I guess the cost is keeping it in the wings and not you know, prevalent everywhere. But you know, as things go along, you know, the probably the life expectancy of a solid state operation has yet to be told, because the capabilities of solid-state power amplification are so new. You know, you're not talking about maybe a 20-year observation of what the expectancy of solid-state, finals would be against tube-type finals, Roger?
Correct. But again, if you're age 82, such as I am, I'm not going to worry about 20 years more. Over.
Oh, Roger. Well, I mean, you could shorten that till tomorrow, which then would be of your concern. But eventually some folks are going to have to worry about just how long solid-state amplifiers can hang together in comparison to a tube type, and I hope I'm alive to be able to report on that observation, Roger.
Well, true. But of course, it's the whole package. It's not just the solid-state part of it, but it's the power supply, the relays that are involved, the quality of the relays, the quality of the power supply, and all the rest of it. That will determine the time before failure, as they used to say. But now ask me if I had lots of money, ask me which amp I would buy. Go ahead.
Roger, I can see one advantage right off the bat, and that would be for our blind brothers, our folks that are visually challenged. I know of a couple of instances that have, transmitters have gone by the wayside due to the inability of the blind person to accurately adjust the tank circuit. So, with a solid state situation, all they have to do is be able to count from right to left or left to right and know that they're on the right band and not have to worry about the tuning, Roger.
True, except of course whatever antenna they use would have to present a very low SWR to the solid state amp, or the amp will trip off. So if they have a station installation where the antenna SWR presented to the amp is, within 1.5 to 1 or something like that, then yes, you could almost have a foolproof station that you could switch on and off. Go ahead.
Roger, and then the other aspect would be an auto tuner, automatic auto tuner. That would take some of the pressure off too, I guess.
You mean an automatic antenna tuner? Is that what you mean, Jim? Over.
Roger.
Yeah, that would work too, even though I don't have any real experience with those automatic antenna tuners, so I can't, really comment. I assume under some conditions they might fail too, but again, I can't comment about them. Go ahead.
Roger. Well, I think radio auto tuners are good for like a 3, and I think external auto tuners are good to about a 5. So I hope that a 5 would certainly be able to correct most situations, except the ones that maybe the dipole's under 2 foot of snow or something like that, where there may be a higher SWR than a 5. Roger.
Yes, could well be. Of course, SWR. If you have, there's 2 parts to the SWR. The resistive and reactive component of what's going on when you're trying to match into an antenna. So, yeah, I mean, I hesitate to comment too much because, again, I have no experience with those automatic tuners. Over.
Roger, John. Roger, John. Well, it's been an interesting QSO, John, and about solid-state amps, and I've enjoyed it. And I'll tell you how to get to our Qso-Vlog page on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, that will bring up our Qso-Vlog page. Right at the top of the page, there will be one entity that has 190 some odd QSOs. And if you click on that, when it comes up, right at the top will be Art Bell. Below that will be Bob Heil. And our QSO should be somewhere just below that. Roger, Roger?
Yes, okay, Jim. But you didn't ask me which amp I would buy if I had $5,000 or $6,000. Over.
Well, I don't want to leave without that, John. What amp would you buy if you happened to come into the possession of $5,000 to $6,000?
The expert amp. The expert amp. Over.
Is that expert amp?
Yeah, the one that's advertised all the time in QST. I think I'm not sure if it's made in Italy or Bulgaria or something like that. But what they call the expert amp. Over.
Roger, Roger. Well, John, duly noted, sir. I'm not familiar with that amp. I'm barely familiar with my Heathkit SB220. I just, every day I bow to the gods in the West that the SB220 keeps trucking on down the road. Roger?
Oh, yeah. I had one of those years ago. Beautiful amp. Well, nothing wrong with the old tube-type amps. Like I say, if something goes wrong, you can replace the tubes or replace some of the other components. I can't do that sort of stuff with the solid-state amps. So definitely nothing wrong with the tube-type amps. But when you grow old and you grow lazy, you have a different perspective. Kc9Vkv W4FA. I think you wanted to sign there, Jim. So I'll say 7-3 to you. Over.
Well, I was catching a little the conditions fade out, but the conditions have come back somewhat. It was, I can't give you a real S-meter reading because I don't run my RF all the way up. I have my RF gain and my audio gain tied together, and I just bring them up together as needed, kind of like copying CW. So I have the lowest signal-to-noise ratio in the front end, so our QSO can be, representative of what's really going on instead of trying to suck up AGC between words. Roger?
Yes, okay, yeah. I used to do that, but I think I grew lazy. What transceiver, you didn't tell me, what transceiver do you have there, Jim? Go ahead.
Roger, Roger. This is an older Yaesu 990. An older Yaesu 990. We're running a homebrew condenser microphone into an ART preamp, into a third octave equalizer, and then up to the tabletop with a remote 6-position rotary switch to select the receiver, or the transceiver, and then a toggle on, toggle off. Roger, Roger?
Yeah, okay, the ART preamp. Is that the one with the VU meter on the front panel? Over.
Yes, this MP3 Studio, I believe it is.
Yeah, okay. I thought I would get into something like that, but I did not. Where did you buy the ART preamp? Over.
That would be Musician's Friend. I think it was like $49 or thereabouts.
Yeah, musician's friend, a musician's friend. Was that it? Over.
Roger, Roger. Yes, I bought quite a bit of stuff from them when I had a studio, and one of those things was the ART preamps we used quite a bit. This is a very nice amp, very quiet. And got great frequency response, and also the the phantom power supply for the condenser mic. Roger?
Yes, okay, Jim. Yeah, I think I bought some items from Musician's Friend a long time ago. but now I pick up little items from Sweetwater. Or what's the other outfit? Full Compass. I'm sure you know those names. Go ahead.
I didn't copy the mail on that company. What was it?
Sweetwater, or Full Compass. Full Compass. Over.
Roger. Not familiar with those, but you know, I don't really purchase that much on the internet or whatever, you know. So my lack of knowledge on that. Roger, John.
Yes. Okay, Jim. Well, I don't purchase that much either. But some years ago, I got some of these catalogs from these companies that have all sorts of audio gear. You know, microphones up to $4,000 and that type of thing. Anyway, just daydreaming about some of that stuff. Okay, I'll say 7-3 to you. Nice to have met you. I don't think I educated you too much, but I tried to do a little bit. Kc9Vkv W4FA.
John, I think you did an excellent job, sir, and I think my viewers will appreciate the take for their consideration. You know, obviously, solid state is getting closer and closer to being a normal situation, and folks want to, you know, get information from those guys that are running them as to what they think about them, and help them make a decision when it comes time to do something about their power amp. So anyway, John, we'll say threes to you, sir. Enjoyed it. And again, if you're interested in what your audio is sounding like, just going to go to YouTube and do that call letter search, Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, and that'll bring you to the Qso-Vlog page. So threes, John. You have a good day, and this is Kc9Vkv.
Okay, Jim. Thank you for the nice Qso. We'll say 7-3 at this point. Look for you again. I'm often here on 40, so hope to run into you again. Kc9Vkv W4 Fox Alpha Clear. 7-3.